In our last video, we talked about whole child education and how the Bruderhof's educational philosophy draws heavily on Friedrich Froebel's belief that the school environment needs to be integrated with the life of the home and family. So today, we're going to be talking about how family life fits into the life of the community.
And just so you know that we're not speaking theoretically here, I'll just put out there that I have 5 children of my own, ages 1 to 13. And Doreen?
Well, I come from a very large family, all raised here in the community. My youngest brother is actually still in high school, but my older siblings and the ones a few younger than me are in college or married.
So we really have some experience backing us up.
The array.
Yeah. So to the basics, family is the central unit in community. It's not like a regrettable distraction from our careers or life in community. In fact, really the only thing more important to us than family is the commitment to follow Jesus. But I think if you read in the Gospels and you see the way Jesus reverenced his parents, especially his mother, to me that's an example to each of us of the centrality of the relationship between parents and children.
Yes, and for that reason, the commandment to honor father and mother that it may go well for you is really of first importance when you think about education. The home is foundational. The school, teachers, the broader community can only really strengthen that foundation.
Yeah, and the educator Heinrich Pestalozzi, who we mentioned previously in this series, said that the living room is really the locus of education. The home is the primary place where children learn to love God and the people around them. And the way they learn is sometimes through religious instruction, like reading the Bible or, discussion around the dinner table. But mostly, and I think much more importantly, it's by example and engaging with the world around them.
We should maybe talk a bit about what family looks like in our particular community. So I'll start. Families have breakfast together. Single people will often go to one family or another, and even though it's not everyone's favorite time of day, certainly not mine, it's important to get started together on hopefully a positive footing.
That's always the hope, at least in our house.
Then the kids go to school for the morning until noon, and they'll either come home for lunch in the family or there'll be a lunch in the communal dining hall, which is a great opportunity for the kids to be part of the wider community and different age groups. They go back to school in the afternoon for more hands-on activities like art or nature studies or games outdoors. And then they come home at 5, which is when parents quit work.
Right, and that's the work week. Weekends are, I would say, mostly free for family activities, although there will also be communal activities like meals or fun events geared to the kids or gatherings, which are more like church. One thing that's an important part of time in the family, at least it was for us and still is for us, is reading together. There's a great line from the educator William Kilpatrick which says something to the effect that children learn to love reading because it helps make sense out of their lives. And then you reach farther back, much farther back, Plato, who thought long and hard about the subject of moral education, actually believed that children should be brought up in such a way that they would fall in love with virtue. And he thought that stories and histories were really the key to sparking this desire in a way that no amount of discussion or dialogue could do. So our family, at this point, is still very committed to reading together.
Philosophers or fairy tales?
Westerns at this point are very popular.
Well, I was just thinking how fairy tales are also just foundational to childhood and learning about that struggle between good and evil. One thing I think is neat for children growing up in community is the way they're able to experience the rhythm of life through the connection to nature. Bruderhof founder Eberhard Arnold talks about how nature is a valuable teacher because all of nature is united by bonds of mutual aid. So from winter activities to tapping maple trees, to making maple syrup, to bird watching, to witnessing the arrival of new lambs in spring, beekeeping, gardening in the summer, and then harvest time. Because we live in community, kids are able to experience more of that than an individual family would because each family has their own interests, but then involves other families in what they're doing.
Yeah, right. Yeah. For example, I'm terrible at bird watching, but I was able to accompany my kids, and we joined up with some other families for what they called an owl prowl, which is where you go make owl noises in the woods at night and the owls come out, and it's very cool. But I would never have been able to do that on my own. But then our family takes care of about 30 sheep, and we're expecting to have around 50 lambs this spring. And at that time, all the kids will come through the barn and maybe even see a lamb being born, and they can look and then also find ways to help, like if a lamb needs some extra attention, maybe some bottle feeding. And that's a really neat project. But I also want to add here that we find ways to celebrate all of these events that mark the passing of the seasons as a community through festivals or special gatherings of other kinds.
Yes, there is a lot that's beautiful about all of that. Probably should say at this point that if you're used to being a more private family, being a family and community can be a little intense at first or overwhelming. At least I've heard that from families who visited, and I can understand that. It's important to find a balance between family time and community time.
Very true. And I also want to just insert in here that families here are far from perfect. It may sound like it's idyllic, but the truth is we have the same arguments and behavioral problems and sometimes outright dysfunction as you'll find anywhere else. But I do have to say, as a parent, I can think of no better place to raise children than in a communal environment where it's not everybody for themselves, but everyone is looking out for each other and wants the best for each other and each other's kids.
So true, and that's amazing. But that's all for this video. Make sure to subscribe to our channel if you haven't yet, and we'll be making more videos on raising children and community coming soon.